BBC News with Fiona MacDonald. A Ukrainian counter-offensive against Russian occupation forces is underway in the south of the country. A senior advisor to President Zelensky says Ukrainian troops have broken through several sectors of Russian defence lines near the city of Kherson. A resident of Kherson told the BBC he witnessed Ukrainian rockets hitting a Russian base last night.
We saw first the Russian air defense missiles. Then we saw that the Ukrainian rockets hit some of the buildings around this city. And then in the night, one of the Ukrainian rockets hit the Russian base on my street. So I've seen the building, it's damaged.
The Iraqi Prime Minister has called for calm after clashes in Baghdad. At least 15 people have been killed. It followed an announcement from the powerful Shia cleric Muqtada al-Sadr that he was withdrawing from politics. Here's Sebastian Usher.
Skirmishes between rival factions as well as the security forces have been taking place in Baghdad in a new and dangerous escalation of a long simmering political showdown. Supporters of the Shia cleric Muqtada al-Sadr appeared to take his declaration that he was withdrawing from politics as a signal to storm the presidential palace, with many then taking a dip in the swimming pool in the compound. Out on the streets, live gunfire rattled across the green zone where government buildings and embassies are situated, despite a curfew that first encompassed Baghdad and then was imposed across the country. The day's unrest to deepen fears that Iraq could be facing further conflict.
A study has found that a major sea level rise from the melting of the Greenland ice cap is now inevitable, even if the world stops emitting greenhouse gases immediately. The research found that global warming to date will cause more than 100 trillion tonnes of Greenland's ice to melt, causing sea levels to rise by at least 27 centimetres. That would have severe consequences for billions of people living in coastal areas. Pakistan's finance minister says the International Monetary Fund has approved a $1.2 billion loan for the country. The IMF loan is a crucial lifeline for Pakistan's struggling economy. Anbarasan Itirajan reports.
The IMF will release the money immediately to Pakistan, which has been suffering from dwindling foreign currency reserves to pay its imports and crippling debt. The reserves have dropped to around $8 billion, enough to pay for less than 2 months of imports. The IMF has also agreed to extend the credit facility to another year. The decision by the international lender will help Pakistan to approach other bilateral funding avenues to boost its reserves. To add to its economic crisis, the country has been devastated by floods, with millions of houses damaged or destroyed and much of its farmland underwater.
BBC News. The European Commission says it's working on an emergency intervention to reform the structure of the electricity market. Some EU member states have been pressing for electricity prices to be decoupled from the price of gas, which has soared as a result of Russia's war against Ukraine. The US space agency NASA is trying to determine why one of the 4 big engines at the base of its new rocket, Artemis 1, didn't function properly before a planned launch on Monday. Jonathan Amos reports.
The large crowds who came in their thousands to witness the maiden flight of the Space Launch System rocket went home disappointed on Monday. Controllers had to stop the countdown clock shortly before liftoff when one of the 4 big engines at the base of the 100-metre tall vehicle refused to cool down to the required operating temperature. NASA is now reviewing why that happened. The hope is that an easy fix might be available and that the agency can then proceed with the first of its so-called Artemis missions, which are designed to take people back to the moon after a 50-year absence.
The Greek Parliament has set up a special committee to investigate a phone hacking scandal that has rocked the Conservative government. In July, the leader of the left-wing PASOK party, Nikos Androulakis, filed a legal complaint claiming his mobile phone was being hacked via predator spyware. It later emerged that he'd also been under surveillance by Greek intelligence before becoming party leader last year. Panama has received from the Netherlands 343 ceramic artefacts produced before the arrival of the Spanish to the Americas in the late 1400s. Panama's foreign minister described it as the biggest repatriation of archaeological pieces in the history of Central America. She said the return of the pre-Columbian treasure was part of an effort to rebuild the country's identity, history and a sense of collective pride. BBC News.